The story of Ireland's economic boom is filled with nuances and contradictions. As we explore the highs and lows, from leprechaun economics to soaring living costs, you'll find that Ireland is an example of economic genius and a cautionary tale. Join me for this enlightening journey. 1. The remarkable turnaround, from poverty to prosperity. You wouldn't believe it if you saw it today, but there was a time when Ireland was synonymous with struggle and hardship. A country steeped in natural beauty, yet plagued by crippling poverty, economic underdevelopment, and mass immigration. The Emerald Isle was not always glittering, my friends. So what changed? How did Ireland flip the script? The Irish tale is one of resilience, strategic moves, and a sprinkle of good old luck. The 90s brought a shift that economists like to call the Celtic Tiger.
And I remember it was a time when the Celtic Tiger was roaring. There was very strong economic growth.
And no, it's not an endangered species. It's Ireland's version of an economic miracle. Ireland saw double-digit growth rates for roughly a decade, something other European nations could only dream of then. But let's talk about numbers, because who doesn't love a jaw-dropping statistic, right? In 2021, Ireland's GDP per capita was a whopping $100,000. To put that into perspective, Ireland's GDP per capita is higher than that of the United Kingdom, Russia, and yes, even the United States. Ireland didn't just climb the economic ladder, it vaulted up to the penthouse suite. But here's the twist. Being Europe's most prosperous country doesn't necessarily mean everyone's rushing to live there. You might say the opposite is happening. Intrigued? Stick around as we dig deeper into why the Emerald Isle, overflowing with riches, is not precisely the European dream you'd expect it to be. How's that for a remarkable turnaround? A country once mired in hardship is now a European powerhouse. What's going on? Why isn't everyone packing their bags to live in this booming oasis? The plot thickens. Let's keep going, shall we? 2. The pillars of success: tax policies and EU membership. So you're probably thinking, what's the secret sauce? How did Ireland go from zero to hero? Well, a couple of crucial ingredients spiced up the successful stew. First up, tax policies.
Our tax policy will remain stable and competitive. This decision, with regard to our corporate tax rate for the very largest of companies, was an immensely important decision.
Taxes. A topic that usually has people rolling their eyes or reaching for an aspirin. But in Ireland, it's a different story. The corporate tax rate? A flat 12.5%. Yep, you heard that right. So while other European countries throw hefty tax bills at companies, Ireland's like, hey, come over here, we're the cool kids. And trust me, companies are listening. Next up is the EU membership card. Being a part of this exclusive club,
I stated on the 7th of October that joining this agreement, but is now part of a broader economic model. Our membership of the European Union, of the single market,
opened big, shiny golden doors. Not only did it give Ireland access to a market of hundreds of millions of people, but it also ushered in a flood of EU structural funding. These funds were like the magic fairy dust that helped build essential infrastructure, from roads to research centers. And who wouldn't want a piece of that pie? Major players parked their European headquarters in Ireland. Picture Silicon Valley, but with more shamrocks and maybe a leprechaun or two. We're talking about tech giants like Facebook, Apple, and Google. Then there's the pharmaceutical behemoth Pfizer, and even the aviation leader Ryanair. Pretty impressive, right? But even with these pillars holding up Ireland's economic sky, only some things are picture perfect. It makes you wonder, if Ireland's got it all, why isn't it the go-to destination for those seeking the European dream? 3. GDP versus real well-being. The discrepancy unveiled.
Writing in the Irish Times today about our GDP figures are shot with uncertainties and inaccuracies. Sure, if you're relying on GDP growth for anything, but it also has another twist to it. I think in our agreement that it was recognising that GDP does give you a very good, accurate measure of well-being, and there's a whole range of other indicators we now need to develop. I'd be an advocate of Kate Raworth's donut economics.
GDP is like that Instagram filter that makes everything look glossy and perfect. It's a measurement of all the goods and services a country produces. But let's be honest, it doesn't capture the whole picture. You might think, with such a sky-high GDP, everyone in Ireland must be cruising in the fast lane, right? Hold on to your horses. That number doesn't tell you about the people grinding daily to make ends meet, nor does it show you the single mom juggling 3 jobs or the young graduate drowning in student debt. Remember that friend who throws lavish parties but is secretly broke? Ireland's a bit like that. Imagine being in a country that's home to the European headquarters of Apple, but still has neighborhoods where folks struggle to afford necessities. Talk about an economic paradox. An average nurse in Dublin ought to be enjoying a comfortable life, at least theoretically, but the reality is far from it. Their earnings are hardly enough to pay the rent, often leading them to make tough choices between buying food and filling up their car. Unfortunately, this is a common struggle for many in Ireland, as the cost of living, including housing and health care, go up.
Here to represent, I suppose, everyone on the cost of living and myself. The prices of food have gone absolutely crazy, and rent and electricity, everything. For childcare, it's just crazy.
The booming economy has its side effects, inflating prices and creating a widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. So what gives? How can a country rolling in cash have citizens hustling like they're in a never-ending rat race? This is the part of the story that GDP sweeps under the rug, the gritty reality behind the sparkling numbers. While Ireland may seem to be booming economically, this is only part of the picture. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman termed this misleading representation as leprechaun economics. On July 12, 2016, he tweeted, "Leprechaun economics. Ireland reports 26% growth, but it doesn't make sense. Why are these in GDP?"
So in 2015, this very significant year for Ireland, the corporate balance sheet in Ireland tells the story of the leprechaun economics jibe.
Krugman's critique highlights the problematic nature of relying on GDP as the sole metric for economic well-being, as it can be artificially inflated by activities such as multinational profit shifting. Don't get me wrong, Ireland's not some Dickensian nightmare. It's a place of opportunity and growth, but its riches are complicated and filled with triumphs and challenges. 4. Housing crisis and infrastructure challenges, the dark side of prosperity. Here's where the story gets complicated. The prosperity Ireland's enjoying, it's a double-edged sword, folks. First off, let's talk about the housing crisis because, oh boy, it's a doozy. With all this newfound wealth, you'd think Ireland would have homes popping up like daisies in spring. Not quite. The reality is more like a game of musical chairs, where the chairs are homes and everyone's frantically circling, looking for a spot to land. According to a 2023 study, the average rent in Dublin was around £2,000 a month. And the kicker? There is not nearly enough housing to go around. Waiting lists for affordable homes stretch for a year, maybe more. Then there is the issue of infrastructure. With all the tech giants in town and the influx of foreign investment, you'd assume that Ireland would have a state-of-the-art public services system. I hate to burst your bubble, but not so much. Think of inadequate public transport, lagging healthcare, and schools bursting at the seams. It's 2023, and parts of rural Ireland still need consistent broadband connectivity. You'd send a carrier pigeon quicker than waiting for that YouTube video to buffer. It is a side of Ireland's prosperity you rarely hear about. We're talking about real people dealing with challenges buried under the shining narrative of economic triumph. It's like throwing a lavish party but needing more chairs or food for everyone. The place looks great, but only some are having a good time. And this is the perplexing riddle at the heart of our tale. How can a country so rich in resources and opportunities be where everyday people are scrapping for basic needs? No wonder not everyone's eager to call Ireland their dream home. 5. The global profit shuffle, Ireland's economy and multinational corporations.
Leading a much-needed revival of principles-based international economic diplomacy. And this approach is delivering real results. We have a landmark agreement to reform international corporate taxation.
Let's talk about the big elephant in the room: multinational corporations and their role in Ireland's sky-high GDP. Prepare to have your mind blown, because this is where things get a bit dicey. When you hear that Ireland is Europe's most prosperous country, you might imagine this wealth is evenly spread, like a perfect layer of butter on warm toast. But plot twist, a lot of that GDP isn't Irish, not in the way you think. Companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook generate insane profits in Ireland. But here's the kicker: much of that money doesn't stay in Ireland. It's like having a roommate who claims half the fridge but never eats at home. So why does this matter? These corporate profits get counted in the country's GDP, which inflates the numbers big time. Some call it the leprechaun economics phenomenon, where the numbers are as tricky as a leprechaun hiding his pot of gold. It's a bit controversial, to say the least, because it paints an image of Ireland as this financial utopia when the reality for its citizens is a bit more complex. So while it looks like Ireland's rolling in dough, a lot is passing through on its way to another bakery. Don't get me wrong, these corporations bring jobs and contribute to the economy in many ways, but their enormous profits create a mirage, making Ireland look wealthier than it feels for the average Joe or Siobhan on the street. So the next time you hear that Ireland is the wealthiest country in Europe, take it with a grain of salt, or a whole salt shaker, because beneath those dazzling numbers is a nuanced story filled with highs and lows, opportunities and challenges. Who knew Ireland's prosperity could be such a complex, multi-layered drama? There's still more to uncover. 6. The mirage of success. Potential challenges ahead. So far, we've been through the highs and lows, the triumphs and pitfalls. But hold on a second. Could the bubble burst? What lies ahead for Ireland? Let's explore the shadows behind the shiny facade. The global community is starting to say, hey, wait a minute. This tax avoidance stuff needs to be reined in. Initiatives like the OECD's Base Erosion and Profit Shifting, or BEPs, aim to distribute profits more fairly among countries. If that happens, Ireland might lose its competitive edge. Have you ever built a sandcastle too close to the tide? You're always one wave away from disaster. The global economic landscape is shifting, and with increased attention on social justice and equitable growth, Ireland's tax perks might become its Achilles heel. Let's face it, it's not just the folks in the pub talking about this anymore. It's making headlines in global economic forums. On top of that, economic dynamics are changing. The aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, Brexit, and even the push for greener economies complicate Ireland's situation. It's like juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. You might keep it up for a while, but any slight misstep could lead to a precarious tumble. So while it may look like Ireland's got its ducks in a row, the pond is more like a turbulent sea. It begs the question, is Ireland's skyrocketing prosperity a sustainable trajectory, or more like Icarus flying too close to the sun? Ireland might have to rethink its entire game plan if the international community tightens the leash on tax havens or if global economic priorities shift. Intriguing. It is a tale of triumph, complexities, and lingering questions about the future. I hope you've enjoyed this roller coaster ride as much as I have. Now, what do you think? Is Ireland's prosperity a long-lasting tale or a fleeting moment in the spotlight? The story's still unfolding, and only time will tell. If you found this deep dive into Ireland's economic roller coaster as fascinating as I did, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more eye-opening content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Have you got any thoughts or questions? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your take. And remember to share this video with anyone who loves unraveling the complexities behind today's headlines. Stay tuned and head on to the following video here where the journey continues. See you soon.